At dawn, the river looked harmless, gray water sliding past cattails, mist breathing low over the bend. The dog had been there all night. A German shepherd, mud-caked and trembling, sat inches from the edge as if guarding something invisible beneath the surface. When anyone came close, it growled, not viciously, but with a desperate warning that carried across the water. By morning, word had spread through Briar Creek, a dog refusing to leave the riverbank. By noon, divers would arrive. By evening, the town would understand why the dog wouldn't move, and why some secrets, once disturbed, never settle back into silence. The first call came in at 6:17 a.m., just as Sheriff Owen Hale was setting his coffee down on the hood of his truck, steam lifting into the cool. The radio crackled with dispatch's clipped tone, measured, trying not to sound like the kind of morning that rearranged lives. Animal disturbance at the South Bend. German shepherd. Refusing to move. Aggressive behavior reported. Owen stared at the fog rolling over Briar Creek River and felt the faint tug of something familiar. In a town like Briar Creek, dogs wandered. Hunters lost them. Kids fed them. Animals came and went with the seasons. But the word refusing had weight. It suggested intention. He drove. The road down to the riverbank narrowed into gravel and then into dirt, the trees leaning closer, branches knitting overhead. When Owen stepped out, the air smelled like wet iron and crushed leaves. He heard the dog before he saw it, a low, rhythmic whine that rose and fell, like breath through clenched teeth. The German shepherd sat at the water's edge, body squared to the river, tail stiff. Its coat was the color of burnt wheat, streaked dark where the river had kissed it. The dog's ears flicked at every sound. When Owen took a step closer, the dog's head snapped around, eyes sharp, amber, and accusing. "Easy," Owen said, hands open. He'd learned long ago that animals listened better than people. "I'm not here to take anything." The dog growled, deep and resonant, then turned back to the river as if Owen were already dismissed. Behind Owen, boots crunched. Maeve Carter, volunteer EMT, town librarian, and the closest thing Briar Creek had to a conscience, stopped a few feet away. She held a thermos like a talisman. "He's been here since before sunrise," she said quietly. "Old Jim saw him around 3. Thought it was a wolf at first." Owen nodded, eyes never leaving the dog. "Anyone try to move him?" "Couple of boys from the mill." He snapped. Not to bite, just enough to scare them off. The river slid past, deceptively calm. Owen felt it again, that tug. He crouched, picking up a smooth stone, and tossed it into the water a few yards out. It plunked and vanished. The dog stiffened. Not at the splash, but at the spot. Maeve noticed it too. "He's watching something," she said. Owen straightened. "Get animal control?" Maeve shook her head. "Already called. They won't be here until afternoon. They're short." Owen exhaled. "Of course they are." By 8, the riverbank had attracted a small audience. Briar Creek was a town where nothing stayed private, not because people were cruel, but because isolation bred a particular hunger for shared moments. Pickup trucks lined the dirt road. A few folks stood back, murmuring. No one crossed the invisible line the dog had drawn. Elias Crow arrived late, his old sedan coughing dust. He got out slowly, one hand pressed to his lower back, eyes hooded. Elias had been Briar Creek's high school science teacher until a scandal, small-town scandals grew teeth, had sent him into early retirement. He walked with a limp now, favoring his right leg. "That dog still here?" Elias asked, voice thin. Owen glanced at him. "You know something?" Elias's mouth twitched. "I know rivers don't keep dogs like that unless there's a reason." Maeve watched Elias carefully. She always did. At 9:30, the dog finally moved, but only to step closer to the water, front paws slipping into the shallows. He leaned forward, nose skimming the surface, whining louder now, the sound sharp with urgency. Owen felt his stomach tighten. He reached for the radio. "Dispatch, I'm gonna need dive support." There was a pause. "Any sign of a body, Sheriff?" Owen looked at the dog, at the river, at the way the fog thinned as if reluctant to leave. "No," he said. "But I think there's something down there that doesn't want to stay hidden." The divers arrived just after noon, their truck humming with equipment. 2 men and a woman, faces professional, eyes curious. They suited up while the town watched from a respectful distance. The dog backed away only when Maeve coaxed him with her voice, low and steady. He didn't leave. He sat, shaking, eyes locked on the water. The female diver, Rena, slid in first. The river swallowed her with a soft hiss. Minutes stretched. The town grew quiet in the way people did when they sensed a threshold. Rena surfaced once, face pale. "There's debris," she said. And something caught. The dog barked then, a sharp, broken sound that echoed. They brought it up slowly, the river reluctant, tugging back. A bundle, dark and heavy, emerged. Mud slid away, revealing denim. A boot. Maeve covered her mouth. Owen felt the weight of the moment settle into his bones. He recognized the boot. Everyone did. The river gave up its dead. They laid the body on the bank, tarp flapping in the breeze. The dog lunged, whining, nose pressed to the tarp, tail low. Maeve knelt, hands shaking, and whispered, "Easy. Easy, boy." Owen pulled the tarp back. The face was slack, eyes closed, hair plastered to the forehead. A bruise darkened the throat like a thumbprint. The name rose unbidden in Owen's mind, unwelcome and undeniable. Caleb Finch. Briar Creek's golden boy. The mill owner's son. The man who'd left town 5 years ago and returned 3 months back with city clothes and city secrets. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elias staggered back, color draining. "No," he breathed. "No, no." Maeve looked at him sharply. "You knew him." "Everyone knew him," Elias snapped, then softened. "I taught him." Owen stood, the river whispering behind him. He met the eyes of the crowd, one by one. Fear flickered. Guilt. Something else. Calculation. The dog lay down beside the body, head on paws, eyes never leaving Caleb's face. "Get him water," Maeve said to no one in particular. "He's exhausted." Owen nodded. "We'll find the owner." Maeve's voice dropped. "He's not leaving." She was right. As the afternoon wore on, questions piled up. Caleb had been reported missing 2 nights ago after leaving the Rusted Nail, the town's only bar. Witnesses were vague. Memories bent under the weight of familiarity and fear. Owen walked the bank, eyes scanning for signs, a scuffed boot print, a broken branch. The river erased as it revealed. Maeve joined him. "You think it was an accident?" Owen didn't answer right away. He thought of the bruise. Of the way the dog had watched a single spot in the water like a promise. "No," he said finally. "I think someone thought the river would do their work for them." Maeve's gaze slid to the crowd, to Elias, to the mill workers, to the Finch family truck idling in the distance. "Then why the dog?" Owen looked at the German shepherd, now drinking greedily from a bowl someone had brought. The dog paused, lifted his head, and met Owen's eyes with a stare that felt like a question. "Maybe," Owen said, "because the river took something it wasn't meant to keep." As the sun dipped and shadows lengthened, the dog stood again, positioning himself between the body and the water, sentinel to both. The town began to disperse, carrying the image with them, heavy as a bruise. Owen knew this was only the beginning. The river had spoken, but it hadn't told the whole truth. And the dog, loyal to the last, wasn't done guarding it. The riverbank emptied the way a theater does after a hard play. Slowly, reluctantly, people turning back for one last look as if the scene might change if they stared long enough. By dusk, only the officials remained, and the dog. Maeve sat on the tailgate of Owen's truck, rolling gauze back into her kit with hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking. The German shepherd lay at her feet, chin on his paws, eyes following every movement near the tarp as if memorizing them. When Owen approached, the dog's ears twitched, but he didn't rise. "Any luck with an owner?" Maeve asked. Owen shook his head. "No collar. No chip. Animal control says they've had no missing reports." "Someone owned him," Maeve said, watching the dog breathe. "Look at him." Owen nodded. The dog's ribs showed beneath his coat, not starved, but lean in the way of animals that worked or traveled long distances. His paws were worn, pads thickened. A dog accustomed to purpose. They loaded Caleb Finch's body into the coroner's van just after sunset. The dog stood then, a low whine catching in his throat, and took 2 steps forward before Maeve murmured his name, any name really, and laid a hand on his neck. He stayed, trembling, as the doors closed. When the van pulled away, the river made a sound like a sigh. That night, Briar Creek closed in on itself. Porch lights flicked on. Curtains shifted. Phones rang with careful questions disguised as concern. Owen drove home along the ridge road, headlights cutting tunnels through the dark. He thought of Caleb's bruised throat, of the way Elias Crow's face had collapsed when the tarp came back. Owen had known Elias most of his life. The man was brilliant, brittle, and, if Owen were honest, capable of bitterness. The scandal had broken him in a way time hadn't repaired. But murder? Owen filed the thought away, neither endorsing nor dismissing it. At home, Owen fed his aging hound, poured a whiskey he didn't drink, and stared at the map pinned above his desk. Briar Creek sprawled small and stubborn, roads like veins, the river a dark artery through the center. He traced the south bend with his finger. He slept badly, dreamed of water pressing on his chest. By morning, the dog was back at the riverbank. Maeve found him there at first light, sitting exactly where he'd been the day before. She brought food, a blanket. The dog ate when she coaxed him, then returned to his vigil. "You don't owe us anything," she told him softly. "Whatever you saw, you've done your part." The dog's eyes flicked to the water. He whined. Owen arrived with a deputy, Jonah Pike, a local boy, eager, too honest for his own good. Jonah stopped short when he saw the dog. "He stayed?" Jonah asked. "He never left," Maeve said. They began canvassing. The rusted nail yielded little beyond half-remembered arguments and spilled beer. Caleb had argued with someone near closing time, voices raised, a glass shattered, but no one could recall with certainty who it was. In a town where everyone knew everyone, certainty was a rare currency. Elias Crow lived alone in a weathered house on the North Road, books stacked like barricades along the walls. He opened the door on the second knock, eyes red-rimmed, jaw tight. "I told you everything yesterday," Elias said. "You told me you taught Caleb," Owen replied. "And that rivers keep dogs for a reason." Elias snorted. "And you think that means I killed him? I think you know more than you've said." Elias's gaze slid past Owen, out toward the trees. "Caleb came to see me," he said finally. 2 nights ago." Owen's pen stilled. "About?" Elias hesitated. "About a mistake. About consequences." "Did you argue?" "Yes." "Did he leave angry?" Elias laughed without humor. Caleb always left angry. It was his favorite posture. "Did he go to the river?" Elias's eyes sharpened. "He said he needed air." Owen wrote it down. As they turned to leave, Owen paused. "Do you know the dog?" Elias shook his head. "But I know what loyalty looks like." Outside, Jonah exhaled. "He's hiding something." "Everyone is," Owen said. "Question is what?" By noon, the autopsy preliminary came back. Cause of death: asphyxiation. Manner: undetermined. Time of death: sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. Owen stared at the report, then at the river through his office window. The dog lay across the street, head on paws, watching the building as if he'd appointed himself guardian to more than one threshold. Maeve stopped by with coffee. "You're thinking about him," she said, nodding toward the window. "I'm thinking about why he knew where to sit," Owen replied. They watched as a Finch family truck rolled past without stopping. That afternoon, a storm rolled in, thick, low clouds, rain that came down in sheets. The river swelled, water climbing the bank inch by inch. The dog refused shelter, bracing himself against the downpour, body angled toward the bend. Maeve ran out with a tarp, draped it over him. He accepted it, eyes never leaving the water. "Stubborn," she murmured. "Faithful," Owen said, joining her. The rain softened the world. Sounds blurred. It was in that muffled hour that the dog stood suddenly, barking, sharp, urgent. He paced, then plunged into the shallows, water up to his chest. Maeve shouted his name, any name, and grabbed Owen's arm. Something's wrong. The dog swam hard, nose low, then turned, teeth clamped on something dark. He dragged it toward shore, muscles straining. Owen waded in, boots filling, and helped haul it up. A jacket. Leather, soaked. A hand slipped from the sleeve, fingers pale and slack. Maeve screamed. They pulled the body free, rain plastering hair to a face Owen recognized with a jolt of cold. Lila Moreno. Caleb's on again, off again girlfriend. The woman who'd left town once and come back with him. The dog shook water from his coat and sat between the two bodies, one fresh, one gone, as if this was the geometry he'd been waiting for. Sirens cut through the rain. By evening, Briar Creek was no longer whispering. It was shouting. 2 deaths shifted the ground. Accidents became impossible. Owen felt the town turn inward, suspicion snapping into place like ice. Lila's throat bore marks too, different, smaller. Defensive wounds on her arms. The river had hidden her for less than a day. Maeve wrapped a blanket around herself, teeth chattering. He knew, she said, staring at the dog. He knew she was there. Owen knelt, rain streaking his hat brim. He looked into the dog's eyes and felt, absurdly, that he was being judged. "Who are you?" Owen asked quietly. The dog leaned forward and pressed his forehead to Owen's knee, a brief, heavy contact. Then he pulled away and stared at the water again. They set up floodlights as darkness fell. The river surged, carrying branches, foam, secrets. Jonah found something snagged on a root near the bend, a torn piece of fabric, red thread at the hem. Maeve recognized it. Lila's jacket had that stitching. Owen's jaw tightened. 2 bodies. Same river. Same bend. Someone had used the water like a confessional, believing it would absolve them. The Finch family arrived late, faces carved from stone. Caleb's father, Martin Finch, stared at the river as if it had personally betrayed him. "This ends now," Martin said to Owen, voice low. "You'll find who did this." Owen met his gaze. "I will." As the crowd thinned again, Elias reappeared, standing just beyond the lights. He watched the dog with something like awe and fear. "You see it now," Elias said when Owen approached. "I see a pattern," Owen replied. Elias swallowed. Caleb wasn't alone that night. "Neither was Lila," Owen said. Elias's shoulders sagged. "They came to me together. They were scared." "Of what?" "Of someone who doesn't forgive." Owen waited. Elias's voice dropped. "Of Martin Finch." The rain eased. The river kept moving. Caleb had been skimming money from the mill, Elias continued. Lila knew. She threatened to tell. Owen's mind raced. Motive stacked on motive. "Why didn't you come to me?" Elias laughed bitterly. "Because in this town, truth is a favor you only get if you can afford it." Before Owen could respond, Jonah called out. "Sheriff, found something else." They hurried to the water's edge. Jonah held up a phone in an evidence bag. The screen flickered to life, rain-smeared but legible. A video paused mid-frame, the riverbank at night. A figure's silhouette. A dog barking. Owen felt the world tilt. "Play it," he said. The clip rolled. Voices, muffled, angry. Caleb's. Another, deeper. Then Lila screamed. The phone slipped in Jonah's hand. The dog barked once, sharp and final, as if punctuating the truth. Owen stared at the frozen frame, the silhouette resolving in his mind into someone he knew well. Someone trusted. The rain stopped. The river did not. The video didn't show a face. It didn't need to. Sheriff Owen Hale watched it again in the quiet of his office, lights dimmed, rain ticking the windows like a countdown. The silhouette by the river moved with a familiarity that lodged in his chest and refused to loosen. The voice, low, controlled, edged with authority, was one he'd heard across kitchen tables, in council meetings, at funerals and weddings. Martin Finch. Caleb's father. Mill owner. The man who'd shaken Owen's hand that afternoon and said, "This ends now." Jonah stood by the door, arms folded too tight. "It could still be." Owen raised a hand. "I know what it is." Briar Creek had always revolved around the mill. Jobs, favors, debts, Everything passed through Martin Finch's hands at some point. He was generosity wrapped around expectation. Kindness with an invoice. And now, the river had spoken his name. Maeve arrived quietly, closing the door behind her. She'd been crying, she hadn't bothered to hide it. "The dog won't leave," she said. "Even now." Owen nodded. "He's waiting." "For what?" "For the truth to finish what it started." They drove to the Finch property just after midnight. The mill loomed dark and massive, its bulk crouched beside the river like an animal at rest. Lights glowed in the big house beyond. Martin Finch never slept when control slipped. Owen told Jonah to stay back. Maeve insisted on coming. "If this goes wrong," Owen said, "I don't want." She met his eyes. "You won't do this alone." The dog appeared from the shadows as they crossed the yard, silent as smoke. He fell into step beside Maeve, shoulder brushing her leg, eyes fixed ahead. Martin Finch opened the door before they knocked. "I wondered when you'd come," he said calmly. He looked older than he had that afternoon, the lines in his face carved deeper by the dark. "You bring a dog now?" "The dog brought us," Maeve said. Martin's gaze flicked to the shepherd. Something passed across his face, recognition, sharp and fleeting. "Come in," Martin said. The house smelled of polished wood and old money. Framed photos lined the walls, Caleb at every age, smiling, winning, never quite looking at the camera. Owen didn't sit. "We found Lila," he said. Martin's jaw tightened. "I know." "You knew where to look," Owen pressed. Martin exhaled slowly. "They came to me," he said. "Both of them. Thought they could threaten me." Maeve's voice shook. "They were scared." "They should have been," Martin replied, too quickly. Silence stretched. The dog stepped forward, nails clicking on the floor. He stopped a few feet from Martin and sat, perfectly still. "What happened at the river?" Owen asked. Martin's eyes flicked to the shepherd again. "That dog was Caleb's," he said. "Bought him from a breeder downstate. Caleb never committed to anything, but that dog followed him like a shadow." Maeve swallowed. "They met me by the river," Martin continued. "Caleb admitted what he'd done. Lila threatened to go public. I told them we'd talk in the morning." "But you didn't," Owen said. Martin's composure cracked then, not into remorse, but into something colder. "Caleb was weak," he said. "He'd ruin everything. The mill. This town. I tried to stop him." Maeve whispered, "You killed your own son." Martin looked at her, eyes bright. "I tried to scare him. He pushed me. Slipped." He laughed, hollow. "The river did the rest." "And Lila?" Owen asked. "She saw," Martin said simply. "She ran. The dog chased her, barking, wouldn't stop. I caught her before she could leave." The dog rose, a low growl vibrating the room. "You used him," Maeve said, horrified. "You blamed him." Martin's voice sharpened. "I blamed the river. Same as everyone else." Owen stepped forward. "You're under arrest." Martin smiled sadly. "You think this town will thank you? The mill closes, people starve. All for two foolish children." The dog lunged then, not at Martin, but past him, toward the back door. Maeve gasped. Owen spun. The river surged outside, swollen and loud. "He's running," Jonah shouted from the yard. Martin bolted. Everything fractured into motion. Owen chased, boots pounding, breath tearing. Martin sprinted toward the riverbank, rain-slicked grass giving way beneath his feet. The dog was ahead of them, a blur of muscle and purpose. At the edge, Martin slipped. He scrambled, fingers digging into mud. The dog stood a few feet away, barking, short, sharp, relentless. "Call him off!" Martin screamed. Maeve arrived, breathless. She knelt, hands shaking. "It's over," she said. "Let go." The dog barked again, not at Martin, but at the river. Owen understood then. The dog wasn't guarding the dead. He was guarding the truth. Martin's hand slipped. He fell into the shallows, water rushing, dragging. Owen grabbed him, hauled him back, cuffed him as the river clawed for its due. The dog fell silent. Dawn came soft and pale, washing the river clean without absolution. Martin Finch was taken away. The mill went quiet. Briar Creek held its breath. In the days that followed, people spoke in hushed tones. Some with relief, some with anger. Betrayal sat heavy, by a man they'd trusted, by a system they depended on. The dog stayed by the river until the funerals were done. Then, one morning, he followed Maeve home. She didn't question it. Weeks later, Owen stood at the South Bend, watching the water slide past. It looked harmless again. It always did. Maeve joined him, the German shepherd at her side, calmer now, older somehow. "What will you name him?" Owen asked. Maeve smiled faintly. "River." Owen nodded. The name fit. The dog sat, watched the water once more, then, finally, turned away.